My name is Liam, and I am an ordinary guy trying to manage the ups and downs of life. I work at a bank in a bustling city, where every day feels like a race against the clock. There are times I wake up and feel like I'm fighting against invisible walls, blocking me from moving forward. Each morning, I dread stepping into the office, the nagging anxiety about meeting deadlines and handling clients' expectations weighing heavily on my chest. You see, I have always struggled with fear. It has held me back from speaking openly during meetings, sharing my ideas, and even taking risks that could help me grow. I remember one time during a big presentation, my palms were sweaty, and my heart raced so fast I thought it might jump out of my chest. I stumbled on my words and could practically feel the weight of my coworkers' stares as I hurriedly finished. I left that meeting feeling defeated and wishing I could be someone who approached challenges with confidence and strength. As I looked around my office, filled with busy colleagues buried in their tasks, I felt more isolated. Everyone seemed to have an easier time tackling their work and facing challenges. I envied those moments when I would see someone pitch an idea with such ease, their voices steady and clear. I wished I could be like them. But here I was, overwhelmed by the simple thought of speaking up. I longed for a sense of mental toughness, that armor against fear that felt so far out of reach. In the cluttered break room, I would often stare blankly at my coffee, trying to muster the courage to join a conversation. Some days, I barely spoke to anyone, retreating into a shell of insecurity, afraid of the things I might say or the looks I might receive. This constant battle made me feel worn out and discouraged, leading to nights filled with restless thoughts about how to change, how to become a person who could easily rise above fear. I wanted to find the strength to truly become who I was meant to be. As the days passed, I decided it was time to change my approach. I wanted to build my mental toughness and boost my confidence. I started by trying to focus more at work, but that was harder than I imagined. Every time I sat down at my desk to begin my tasks, my mind would wander. I would think about the dishes I needed to wash when I got home or what my weekend plans might be. The more I tried to concentrate, the more distracted I became, leading to a frustrating cycle I couldn't break. I heard about something called deep work, which encouraged focusing on one task for a long period. Excited by the idea, I aimed to set aside time each afternoon to dive deeply into my work. But when the time came, I found myself checking my phone repeatedly or getting lost in conversations with coworkers. I realized my old habits had a strong grip on me, pulling me away from growth. The self-doubt began to creep in. What's wrong with me? I thought. Why can't I just stay focused? I felt like I was fighting a losing battle. One day, after yet another frustrating attempt to get work done, I returned to my break room. I sat down with my cup of coffee, feeling defeated. That's when I overheard a conversation between two colleagues who seemed so confident and energized. As they laughed and shared their experiences, my heart sank. I wanted to feel that sense of ease. Instead, I felt smaller and smaller, tugged down by my doubt and fear. As I mulled these feelings over my coffee, an older woman entered the break room. Her name tag read Mrs. Evans. I knew she worked in human resources and had been with the company for many years. She always appeared calm and collected, handling even the toughest situations with grace. I watched her quietly, hoping to learn good habits from her. Mrs. Evans caught me staring and smiled warmly. "It looks like you need a bit of a pick-me-up," she said, gesturing toward my coffee. I offered a weak smile in return. We talked for a while, and I shared my struggle with concentrating and the fears that haunted me in big meetings. I told her how I wanted to be heard and make a real impact but felt too wrapped up in anxiety to show my true self. Instead of dismissing my feelings, Mrs. Evans listened intently. She shared stories from her own early career, recalling the struggles she faced. "It takes time to build confidence. Remember, no one starts out strong," she said. Those simple words struck me. Maybe I didn't have to be perfect right away. Maybe I could take small steps toward improvement instead of expecting instant change. After this talk, Mrs. Evans reached into her bag and pulled out a book titled Mind Over Matter. "This really helped me during tough times," she insisted, handing it to me. I accepted it, feeling grateful for the kind gesture. As I glanced at the cover, a wave of hope washed over me. Perhaps this could be the spark I needed, a bit of guidance turning my self-doubt into determination. I returned to my desk with the book in my hand, a new sense of purpose lighting up my thoughts. I could not change everything overnight, but maybe I could learn a thing or two along the way. It was a small shift, but it felt like the beginning, a tiny step on a long road ahead, and for the first time in a while, giving up didn't feel like my only option. With Mrs. Evans' book tucked under my arm, I found myself eager to dive into my mornings. I started reading Mind Over Matter during my breaks and tried to apply its ideas to my daily routine. The book often spoke about the importance of small wins, which encouraged me to look for little victories instead of aiming for perfection right away. With this new mindset, I decided to set small goals for myself. One day, I challenged myself to focus on a single task for just 10 minutes without interruptions. At first, it felt like a huge mountain to climb. I cleared my desk of distractions, put my phone on silent, and began to type. As I worked, I could feel my mind starting to drift. I thought about my lunch, the upcoming weekend, and even the last episode of my favorite show. However, I kept returning my attention to the task at hand, clenching my fists at times, reminding myself to breathe and stay present. To my surprise, I managed to get through those 10 minutes. I felt a spark of pride light up within me, even though it wasn't a long accomplishment. It was a start. I celebrated that small victory by taking a short break, allowing myself a moment to recognize my progress. In that moment, I realized that I could control my focus for at least short bursts. Emboldened by this small success, I decided to share my newfound strategy during our weekly team meetings. As my turn approached, I could feel the familiar anxiety creeping back in. Yet, I reminded myself of Mrs. Evans' encouraging words, "It takes time to build confidence." Taking a deep breath, I opened my mouth to speak. "I've been working on improving my focus. I set small goals for myself each day," I said, and to my surprise, the room replied with an encouraging nod and smiles from my colleagues. It felt good to share my journey, even if it was a small one. However, just as I was basking in the moment, the team began discussing new project deadlines with increasing urgency. The pressure in the room grew palpable as my manager demanded updates and quick decisions. My heart raced again, and my earlier confidence began to slip away. Suddenly, I was thrown into a whirlwind of questions, my mind clouding over with uncertainty. What should I say? I wondered, my palms becoming sweaty as I fidgeted nervously. I was caught off guard when my manager turned to me and asked, "Liam, how do you think we should proceed?" I froze. Everything I learned seemed to vanish. The fear that had gripped me days before came flooding back, yet something was different this time. I took a deep breath, just as I had practiced during those first 10 focused minutes, and with a shaky voice, I suggested a simple plan based on our discussion. It was an idea inspired by my earlier work. I think we could divide the tasks into smaller parts and tackle them one at a time. I stumbled through the explanation, but the words came out. I saw my colleagues nodding, tempered by the clarity of my suggestion. However, the moment was not entirely triumphant. My manager suggested an alternative approach, and I felt the air leave my lungs, the echo of my self-doubt creeping back in. While I had made a small contribution, I realized I still had a long way to go. I wasn't quite where I wanted to be yet. These moments of growth were a mixed bag, one foot forward and one step back, but somehow, I felt that the small achievements were leading me towards something greater. Encouraged but humbled, I returned to my desk with a sense of determination. I knew this journey would take time, and I would face many more challenges ahead. But now, every small win built a path forward, reminding me that progress was indeed possible, and giving me a flicker of hope to hold on to. The day of the big presentation arrived, and the weight of anticipation pressed heavily on my shoulders. I had been preparing for weeks, gathering data, creating slides, and rehearsing what I needed to say. This moment felt important, and the stakes were high. My manager had chosen me to lead the presentation to our company's executive team, a decision that both excited and terrified me. In a way, it felt like a test of everything I had been trying to achieve. In the days leading to the presentation, I focused on my small wins, trying to bolster my confidence. Each time I practiced, some flickers of bravery surged within me. Would this be my moment to shine? I pushed those thoughts aside and concentrated on my notes, following the strategies from the book Mrs. Evans recommended. However, despite my preparation, I could feel a storm brewing inside me as the morning of the presentation dawned. The conference room felt enormous when I stepped inside. The polished table glimmered under the bright lights, and I could see my colleagues seated, ready to assess my every word. The executives arrived, and the atmosphere shifted as they settled in. I flashed a smile, but my heart raced. This was a room full of great minds, experienced leaders who had been in my shoes years ago. Would I be able to share my ideas effectively with them? As I began the presentation, something unexpected happened. My voice trembled slightly, a telltale sign of anxiety creeping back in. I attempted to recall all the strategies I had worked so hard to apply, but fear clouded my thoughts like gray mist. Suddenly, I lost my place in the material and fumbled through the slides. I could feel my colleagues' eyes on me, silently observing, while my confidence began to shatter. Old doubts surfaced. What if I ruin this for everyone? What are they even thinking of me? The questions stormed through my mind, leaving me breathless. I desperately battled with my anxiety but felt disconnected from my thoughts. My once firm foundation began to crumble, exposing the self-doubt that lay beneath. One moment, I thought I could rise to the occasion, and the next, I yearned for the safety of my desk, away from everyone's gaze. As I glanced at the executives, I felt like a child playing dress-up in an adult's clothes. This was not where I belonged. My hands shook and warmth flooded my cheeks as I gathered my thoughts. In that moment, I could hear the voice of my old self whispering in my mind, "You cannot do this. You will fail." The clouds of uncertainty thickened and, for an instant, I considered running away. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to take a deep breath. The weight of this one fear felt heavier than it ever had before. Fighting through the panic, I caught a glimpse of the book Mrs. Evans loaned me, which I had kept open in my mind. Just the thought of it sparked something within me. Remembering the lesson about focusing on small steps, I paused, took a deep breath, and tried to ground myself. Perhaps it wasn't about perfection, it was about sharing my ideas and being honest. I felt a flicker of resolve. I steadied myself, reminding myself that everyone had been through challenges. As I looked at my notes, I realized I was still meant to share what I had worked on. Focusing on my core message, I pushed through the self-doubt and fought to reclaim my confidence, even as the shadows of fear loomed large. It was the most intense moment of my journey so far, testing every ounce of courage I had discovered. And yet, deep down, I knew a transformation was waiting just on the other side. As I stood in that conference room, all eyes on me, it felt as though the walls were closing in around me. My heart raced, and my palms were clammy as I stumbled over my words. Each second felt like an eternity. I glanced nervously at my slides as disbelief crept into my mind. What am I doing here? The vibrant energy I had come into the meeting with now felt like a distant memory. In that overwhelming moment, I felt as if I had stepped too far away from my comfort zone, and a wave of despair washed over me. I couldn't regain my footing. My features felt heavy with fear, and I could practically hear the echoes of my old doubts ringing in my ears. Thoughts raced through my mind like wild horses. I'm going to embarrass myself. Everyone will see that I don't belong here. Why did I ever think I could do this? As I stood frozen, I saw the faces of my colleagues and the executives turn into blurred shapes. I wanted to flee, to turn and escape the room, hiding away from my failure. For a moment, I thought about abandoning my journey of growth altogether. It seemed easier to retreat into my old habits than to face this wave of discomfort. My heart ached, and I wondered whether all my hard work was for nothing. What if I was not meant to change? Just when I thought I could not take it any longer, a soft voice broke through the chaos in my mind. It was Mrs. Evans, who had entered the room quietly. I hadn't even seen her walk in. She smiled gently, and her warm demeanor cut through the haze that surrounded me. As she crossed the room, I remembered our earlier conversations about struggle and perseverance. "Liam, you've got this," she whispered, standing right by my side. "I'm proud of you for taking this step." Her presence reminded me that I wasn't in this alone. In a small way, that simple phrase lit a tiny flame of hope in my heart. Then, like a forgotten treasure, a powerful memory jolted me. I recalled a time when I was young, facing my fear of swimming. I could still see the sunlight glistening on the water and hear the laughter of my friends on the other side of the pool. I remember standing at the edge, afraid, but a close friend had jumped in and urged me to follow. I took a deep breath and plunged into the water, feeling panic at first but then the thrill of floating and knowing that I could actually swim. It was one of my first real victories over fear, a simple moment of bravery that had sparked a change in me long ago. With that memory fresh in my mind, a realization hit me. Growth is not about being fearless, it's about facing fear head-on and learning to rise above it, just like I had when I jumped into the pool. Here was this moment again. This was just another step in the journey, and I had climbed many hills to reach this point. I could either shrink back into my shell or embrace the challenge and share my message with everyone in the room. In that instant, I felt a spark of courage calling to me. I turned to my audience. Raising my chin slightly, I spoke with newfound clarity. I reminded myself of the lessons learned, each small win I had celebrated along the journey, and how every stumble brought me closer to where I wanted to be. The journey was messy, but it was mine. This was my time to shine, and I was ready to embrace this moment. The emotional tide shifted, and with that, I found the strength within me. With renewed determination, I tightened my grip on the presentation clicker and steadied myself. My heart still raced, but I knew I couldn't back down now. No more retreating into old habits. I reminded myself of the lessons from Mrs. Evans' book, the small wins I had celebrated, and that memory of learning to swim. It was time to anchor myself in the present. Taking a deep breath, I looked at my slides and focused on the message I wanted to share. "Okay, let's make this work," I whispered to myself, preparing to share my insights with real commitment. With a newfound sense of resolve, I embraced the energy in the room, wanting to connect with my colleagues and the executives before me. As I began speaking again, each word started to flow a bit easier. I noticed the countless hours of effort I had dedicated to perfecting my ideas now came rushing back, fueling my confidence. Although the anxiety bubbled beneath the surface, I engaged with my audience, maintaining eye contact and noting their reactions. They were listening. I confidently outlined our project goals, but instead of just reciting information, I shared my perspective. Bringing context to my ideas, I explained how our work would not just meet deadlines but create real value. I illustrated this through examples that resonated with what we all understood and cared about. The room seemed to come alive, and I felt a positive shift in the air around me. Yet, even as I spoke, I encountered unexpected questions. They came rapid fire, from various corners of the room. Each query seemed to test my preparedness, yanking my confidence back just when I thought I had it. It would have been easy to let my nerves rise again, yet something vital had changed within me. Instead of panicking, I took deep breaths. "Great question," I would say, allowing myself a moment to gather my thoughts. Each time, I took a second, replaying my knowledge and drawing on the research I had prepared for this session. Preparing and reflecting made sense, even amidst the pressure. A few moments of contemplation transformed into meaningful answers. The waves of tension still crashed against me, but I focused on navigating the currents instead of drowning. I would share an answer rooted in solid data but still acknowledge the uncertainty of innovative projects. We are taking a chance, but here's how we can manage risk while striving for success. My responses began to show not just the viability of our ideas but also a genuine understanding of both challenges and solutions. With each thoughtful interaction, I felt the internal fight start to fade, more replaced with a spirit of teamwork and collaboration. As I reached the conclusion of my presentation, I took another deep breath. The butterflies in my stomach buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and relief. Yes, there had been moments of uncertainty and fear, but my actions reflected resilience, focus, and a touch of vulnerability. I had pursued clarity amidst the chaos and forged connections with my audience. When I finished and moved away from the podium, a wave of gratitude washed through me. I had challenged myself and risen above insecurities. There was no grand finale or perfect resolution, but this experience had highlighted the importance of growth through struggle. I walked away knowing that I had made real progress, embracing a journey defined by resilience and newfound strength, not perfection. Making it through this tough moment felt like a turning point, a testament that my growth was just beginning. As I stepped away from the conference room, the atmosphere felt different. My heart still raced, but this time it was with a sense of accomplishment rather than anxiety. I had completed the presentation, and despite the struggles that led up to it, I felt a renewed sense of self as I entered the hall outside. I could hear the soft buzz of conversations, and the sound of my coworkers exchanging thoughts on the ideas I had shared. For a moment, I stood frozen in place, absorbing everything around me. This moment felt significant, but I realized that the impact of my breakthrough extended beyond mere success or failure. I hadn't just pushed through a difficult task, I had learned more about myself than I ever expected. Thinking back to how I felt just before I faced the executives, I marveled at the journey I had taken. Every doubt and moment of uncertainty seemed now like stepping stones leading me forward. I gently shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. There would always be challenges, but I had discovered how to face them instead of running away. I took a quick detour to the break room to gather my thoughts. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the comforting warmth contrasting sharply with the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. As I sipped, memories of that stressful morning washed over me. The fear I had felt was real, almost suffocating, but I had transformed it into something empowering by sharing my ideas courageously. I reflected on how Mrs. Evans' encouragement became a catalyst for my growth. Sitting quietly at a table in the break room, I started to realize the true value of mental toughness. It wasn't about never feeling afraid, it was about acknowledging the fear and making the choice to push through anyway. I came to understand that growth was sometimes messy and imperfect, filled with both victories and setbacks. Yet, it was during those moments of struggle that I had found clarity and determination within myself. As the day went on, the feedback from my coworkers about the presentation began to trickle in. I heard affirmative remarks and witnessed smiles and nods of approval. People highlighted points they found intriguing and expressed their excitement for the future of our project. They appreciated not just the content but the confidence and honesty in my delivery. I had given them a piece of my journey, allowing them to feel inspired and connected as well. Every compliment fueled my newfound belief in myself, but I was careful not to let it inflate my ego. I knew that this was just one step along my path. The challenges I had faced were no longer spikes of fear but rather climbing walls I could tackle with grit and resilience. This experience taught me that growth comes from vulnerability in facing fears, not pretending that they do not exist. Before long, I found myself engaging with colleagues more actively, sharing laughs and ideas. I felt a sense of belonging, like I was part of a group working towards something greater than myself. I looked ahead and recognized that the journey of self-improvement could continue throughout my life. The mental toughness I had begun to cultivate would serve me well no matter the challenges I faced in the future. With each sip of coffee, I began expanding the horizon of possibilities within my mind. I could throw away the limitations I had placed on myself, allowing room for growth in ways I never thought possible. The breakthrough event had marked a shift in the way I approached challenges, and I felt excited to see where this journey would take me next. As the weeks passed since that pivotal presentation, I began to notice significant changes in my daily life. The newfound mental strength I had acquired was akin to a shield against the distractions and fears that had once consumed me. I set a routine that started each day with moments of focus and intention. Mornings now began with some quiet time, in which I practiced deep breathing and set goals for the day. These small habits served as daily anchors, guiding me through whatever challenges awaited me. At work, I approached tasks with a clarity I had never felt before. Gone were the days when my mind wandered off during important meetings or conversations. When discussions grew heated or deadlines loomed near, I remained steadfast. Instead of being paralyzed by pressure, I took a step back and organized my thoughts. I utilized everything I had learned, from setting small goals to practicing resilience, and the difference was striking. I remember one particular afternoon when the team faced an unexpected problem during a crucial project phase. Just a week prior, similar situations had sent me into a swirl of anxiety. But this time, I was ready. Instead of panicking, I facilitated a brainstorming session, encouraging my colleagues to come together and share ideas. It felt good to be proactive rather than reactive. As solutions landed on the table, I felt the tension in the room ease. Seeing my coworkers respond positively to my leadership made me recognize the change they saw in me. After the meeting, several members approached me to express how they appreciated my calm and collected demeanor. Hearing their praise filled me with joy, but it also reminded me that the journey of personal growth doesn't exist in a vacuum. By opening up and sharing my newfound resilience, I could inspire those around me as well. Even outside the office, I carried the lessons with me. My conversations with friends transformed from superficial exchanges to meaningful discussions. Gone were the days of hesitating to share my thoughts for fear of judgment. Now, I spoke openly and honestly, sharing aspirations and discussing challenges. I could see my friends responding with similar openness, contributing to a deeper sense of connection among us. Self-doubt and distraction had lost their power over me, but what truly surprised me was my ability to manage stress. On the weekends, I revisited activities I had previously avoided due to insecurities. Whether it was a pickup game of basketball or a weekend hike, I faced each opportunity earnestly, knowing that past fears held no power over me. On a hiking trip with friends, energy surged within me as I navigated steep trails alongside them. I heard laughter in the air, and for the first time, I felt free to participate fully without the weight of expectations. My sense of mental strength was steadily integrating itself into every aspect of life. Those moments of focus, from dedicating time to deep work in my career to re-establishing relationships, helped me cultivate a bulletproof mindset. When mishaps occurred, instead of faltering or spiraling into worry, I embraced them as learning opportunities. I learned to adjust my plans and recalibrate my approach, knowing that challenges could be navigated effectively rather than feared. During lunch one weekday, my manager approached me with a smile, acknowledging my transformation since the presentation. "Liam, it's impressive to see how you've taken on challenges." Those words filled me with pride and affirmed the road I was on was indeed the right one. My heart filled with gratitude for the journey I had undertaken. Every step and misstep had brought me to this point. As I settled into the rhythm of my redefined life, I found joy in the journey of growth. Challenges no longer felt daunting, they were opportunities waiting to be tackled. This mindset shift became a part of who I was now, a resilient explorer ready to embrace whatever came my way, armed with the lessons and strength I had built on this journey. Looking back on my journey, I felt a sense of pride swell within me. Just months ago, I had struggled to find my voice, while now I'd comfortably stepped into it, all thanks to that turning point, the presentation that tested my mental strength and resilience. I paused for a moment and remembered how it felt to stand where fear and doubt consumed me. Every practice session, every moment of hesitation, and all those small victories had shaped who I was becoming. Now, as I sat at my desk, I felt different. The once daunting tasks that filled my day no longer felt like mountains to climb. I approached my workload with a fresh perspective, a sense of freedom and confidence that had significantly shifted my mindset. Confident, wary of my limits but open to pushing them, I understood that growth never truly ended. Challenges were part of the journey, something I could embrace rather than shy away from. One sunny afternoon, my team gathered for a celebratory meeting after successfully completing a significant project launch. The light-hearted conversations filled the room with laughter and excitement, and as I joined in, I realized how far we had come together. Moments like these were proof of the positive changes that the entire team had undergone. Yes, there had been obstacles, but we faced them together, creating bonds that extended beyond the workplace. As I watched my coworkers engage in discussion, I found joy in my role. I contributed ideas freely and saw that my voice was respected and valued. There was no fear of judgment, just collaboration and support. This shift had not just happened to me, it was collective growth, where we all learned to push through discomfort together. Reflections of my earlier self surfaced occasionally, but now they lacked power. The struggles from my past served more as reminders of the strength I had gained rather than sources of self-doubt. I understood that perseverance was not only acting confidently in the face of fear but also acknowledging past fears while continuing to grow from them. With every new challenge that came my way, I was ready to meet it head-on. The idea of taking risks no longer felt frightening, rather, it ignited a sense of adventure within me. As I contemplated my actions moving forward, I recognized one last key takeaway: growth requires stepping outside of comfort zones. That thought lingered in my mind, I could feel it rooting itself deep within me. Armed with the lessons I had learned and a resilient heart, I felt equipped to face whatever lay ahead. Life would always present its hurdles, but I embraced this uncertainty with optimism. There were many more goals I wished to pursue, new anxieties to conquer, and fresh skills to develop. I took one last deep breath, allowing a smile to form on my lips. The excitement danced in my chest, knowing each new experience offered lessons just waiting to unveil themselves. The path of growth was no longer daunting but a journey I was eager to continue, one I approached with open arms. As I returned to my work, I looked at my to-do list with a sense of opportunity instead of the burden. I realized that embracing challenges was a continuous cycle of learning. I was not the same person I had been when I began this journey. No longer confined or limited by fear, I stood taller, ready to conquer whatever awaited me on this path of personal growth. It was more than simply finishing tasks or proving myself, it was about living fully and confidently in each moment, prepared to face whatever came next.